Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Start and Park Art. We have a huge show for you guys today. We will be talking about all three divisions of ARCA, the East Series upcoming at Dover, and the reviews for Kern County West and the main series at the big badass Talladega Superspeedway. Big show for you guys today, so file on in here and we'll have a great time today. I'm going to go over my little intro I do at the beginning of every show, and we'll get right into the ARCA action. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Start and Parker on Twitter if you're a fan of the ARCA Racing and lower budget team news. I'm your guy. And if you're a fan of what we do on here, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell for all notifications so you never miss a podcast when we go live. And, of course, give a like and a shout-out to the racingexperts.com for all NASCAR Media content. They are great friends of this show. So as we get right into it, guys, like I said, huge weekend of action. Talladega for the big series. West Series at Kern County, one of my favorite short tracks on the West Coast. And the East Series will be previewing that race from Dover. The way I was going to kind of start this podcast is we were going to get the West Series stuff out of the way first. Then we go to the main series. And then, of course, we're going to end with the East Series. That's how we're going to do it. So we're going to start off with the West Series, even though that race actually came after ARCA Talladega. So we're going to start off with West. So the West Series at Kern County. First off, I thought the race was actually a lot better than I thought it was honestly going to be. Landon Lewis had dominant practice. We only had 16 cars entered for this race, a little bit lower than last year, but still a solid field. No start in parks, which was the good thing. Bobby Hillis looks like he is intended to run a full season. Some notes coming into this race, Nick Muniz and the PP1 Motorsports team have also acquired cars, apparently, from the former Sunrise Ford Racing. So, except they kind of took off the orange and just made it all blue. So if you do see some photos out there sometime of the 77 car, you will notice that it actually has the old blue paint scheme that the Sunrise Ford cars were known for. So that was kind of the interesting things coming into this weekend. Would Sean Hingorani be able to hold up the same speed from Irwindale? Could Landon Lewis go 2 for 2, or would we see somebody else surprise being competitive? Practice qualifying didn't really show that. Landon Lewis beat the field by over a tenth. Sean Hingorani was second. Tanner Reif, arguably showing the most speed that we've ever seen out of Tanner Reif driving the 16 this season. Probably the most speed we've seen of the 16 in quite a long time. Third quickest. So hopefully this is good things for the Bill McNally ARCA team because they really had a tough go. Last year was a tough year, and this year has been kind of a tough year, even the first couple of races. Todd Souza fourth. He was again running his DGR car. Trevor Huddleston is fifth. Tyler Reif down in sixth. Ethan Nascimento seventh. Bradley Erickson, kind of surprised to see the Naki Kluwer team that slow. Only eighth quickest. Eric Nascimento ninth. RJ Smotherman was 10th. Jake Bowman down in 11th. I wonder if that crash from Irwindale set that team back, and maybe they brought a car to Kern County that they maybe didn't want to for him, because he did not show any speed all weekend compared to what the high point cars are usually running. And then we kind of had our field fillers for this Jerry Pitts cars, Takuma Koga and Kyle Keller. Definitely not the best performance out of Kyle Keller. He's usually a lot better than that. British Columbia, David Smith, Nick Muniz, of course, running that ex-Sunrise Ford car, and then good old Bobby Hillis in his white Chevrolet. So the race got going underway. The 17 pulled out to a huge lead. We'll say, though, on the start, the 7 of Takuma Koga couldn't get going. They tried to fire the car, and they were literally pushing him lap after lap after lap with the pace truck, trying to get him fired. And luckily, right as they finally threw the green flag, Takuma got fired. But unfortunately, he had to start the race pretty much half a lap behind the leaders, so his race was already screwed. His race was already screwed to begin with before the race pretty even got started. So that was a shame for Takuma. Landon Lewis pulled out to a big lead. Some controversy at the beginning. Apparently, the 15 of Sean Hingorani, I don't quite remember the penalty, if he maybe beat the leader to the line or if he just jumped the start, if they considered he jumped the start. But either way, mysteriously, about 10 laps in, the 15 of Sean Hingorani had to do a pass-through penalty. And it was quite surprising. I'm like, was this a pit stop? Because usually the Venturini cars never have issues. But no, it was just simply later said by Charlie Crawl on the commentary that it was just a penalty that he had to serve. But we know with how fast this track is and how quickly things happen, he went a lap down. He went a lap down very quickly. And I really thought that was his race right there. And I'm like, with already being 13 points out, another bad finish would mathematically almost take him out of the championship hunt for good. At this point, we already had our first pull off, the 46 of RJ Smotherman. I thought it was a start and park at first because of how quickly he pulled off, but it was a rear gear issue on the 46. Again, the Irwindale crash really set that the Loudon Jackson team back. That is not what they needed for the 46. And spoiler alert, because of that, unfortunately, because of that, they are not going to be at this weekend's race at Dover, effectively eliminating Tyler Reif's chances at going for both championships. So that's kind of a spoiler right there. But he pulled off the track. That kind of left us with 15 cars. And I say, with only 15 cars, man, the attrition rate was real. I mean, they were really clicking off the lap times. I mean, Landon Lewis was really clicking off the lap times, really clicking off the lap cars. I mean, he caught the 05 and the 27 very quickly. He caught the other straggler lap cars very quickly as well. The 13 of Todd Souza, he quickly fell down the order. It's been a rough year for Todd. All 3 races so far this season have been tough goes for him. He fell down the order with an ill-handling car. Huddleston made his way up to 3rd. Tanner Reif kind of settled into 4th. Erickson kind of settled into 5th. Everyone kind of settled in. When they kind of settled into their positions, they didn't have a lot of jockeying. They would battle for a couple laps, and then they would stabilize, then battle again, then stabilize, but no real position changes. They would battle each other, but a position wouldn't change. But I was noticed that looking through the lap times for this race, that the 15 of Sean Hingorani was actually running faster lap times than the leader of Landon Lewis. And actually, it wasn't even mentioned by Crawl on the podcast. He caught it a couple of minutes later, but the 15 actually unlapped himself. The 15 of Hingorani actually unlapped himself, which was pretty impressive. And by that point, I think we had only had probably 6 or 7 cars on the lead lap. I mean, the 17 was setting such a torrid pace. We eventually came to our first yellow because, like I said, there's no action going up front of the lead. The 17 is just dominating. The 16 is holding 2nd. The 88 is holding 3rd. Tyler Reif, boy, I tell you, outside of his amazing performance at Phoenix, the 41 team has not shown much in the last 2 races, in their East races or these last 2 West races. They haven't shown that much speed. So it makes you wonder, man, did we get a little too hype for Tyler with these calls? But yeah, 68 laps in, we finally had a caution, the 70 of Kyle Keller, who, like I said, kind of been a rough day for Jerry Pitts. Both cars were definitely not running like we know they can. Takuma wasn't running very good, and the 70 was not running very good as well. He had a tire go down, couldn't get down, so that brought out a yellow. I believe that was classified also as the halfway break. Teams changed tires, but the one thing that did do was bring Sean Hingorani back up to the front, and he came through the field quickly. Eventually got up to 4th, eventually got up to 3rd, and eventually got to 2nd. I will say it was a pretty interesting battle. You could clearly tell that the 17 was not quicker than the 15. The 15 was running him down lap by lap by lap by lap. And it's like Sean didn't even have to put the bumper to him. He just got under him on lap 111, and he got the lead. And boy, once he took the lead, there was no looking back. There was just no looking back. He took the lead. Another amount of laps went by, and then on lap 120, we had the first of 2 accidents for David Smith in the 05. He spun around in turn 2. The free pass was a 55 of Bowman. That gave us a couple more cars on the lead lap, 7 cars to be exact. Restart got going again, and again, the 17 could hang there for about a lap, but then the 15 would just pull away. And I just think at the end of the day, it comes down to experience. Venturini has been in this business longer than almost anyone else. I think next to McAnally. So Venturini, they know how to set up a car for this race. He just kept pulling away. Nothing was going to happen. I mean, I'll say this. The 15 had the win in hand. And then, unfortunately, we had yet another accident for the 05 David Smith. This time, a much more severe accident. Actually, lots of damage to the front of his car and rear of the car. It's kind of a good that David Smith is got a great affiliation with Shockwave. I don't know if he actually works or what he does with Shockwave, but he's got a big affiliation with Shockwave, so they had plenty of sponsor dollars. But tough to see that happen to David. He's a great guy, works very hard. So it sucks to see a lower tier team go out with a crashed car. That did move Bobby up a little bit more. We did have some retirements throughout the race. Eric Nascimento fell out halfway through the race with electrical issues, and the 70 of Kyle Keller would fall out again with an engine issue. And then, of course, David Smith. 12 cars would end up finishing the race. So this would set up a green-white checkered. Now it's like, okay, we know the 15 is dominant, but if someone like the 50 or the 17 can just get to the bumper, that's all you need to do. You're all going to hold them up for 2 laps. They took the restart, and I will give Trevor Huddleston a lot of credit. He tried his best. He threw that 50 car down there into turn 1, and it stuck, and he got into this 15, but it wasn't enough to send the 15 up the hill. And by the time they were halfway down the backstretch, it was already gone. The 15 was gone. 17 was able to hold on for second as the 50 was challenging him, but it wasn't meant to be for the win. Sean Hingorani and Venturini Motorsports pick up their second straight win. And for Sean, it's now it's his second career win. I believe this, again, it's a second career win overall for Venturini in the West Series. Congratulations to them. Landon Lewis has now finished second all 3 races so far in 2023. That might be a record. That's impressive. But if you're Landon Lewis, that's not a record you want to have, of course. But it does mean good for the championship. We'll get to that in a second. Trevor Huddleston ended up third. Tanner Reif with arguably the most competitive race that McAnally's run in a long time in the ARCA division. And fourth, Bradley Erickson was fifth. Again, not the best run for Naki Kluwer. It's definitely saying that team is not where it was last year with Joey East. Tyler Reif, only sixth. Again, expected more out of this team after how they performed at Phoenix. Jake Bowman, like I said, I attribute that to them not probably wanting to bring this car to this race. The one that was at Irwindale was trashed. Ethan Nascimento was 8th. Todd Sues. It's been a rough year for Todd, man. A lot of people are saying that this might be his last year, but it's been a rough year for Todd, only 9th. Nick Jonides in their Sunrise Ford car got 10th. Takuma Koga, very disappointing run for him, 11th. Bobby Hillis, though. Bobby Hillis has finished every race so far, so good for Bobby, 12th place. As we mentioned, David Smith, 13th. Kyle Keller, 14th. Eric Nascimento, 15th. And RJ Smotherman, 16th. The championship standings for the West Series coming out of this race. Like I mentioned before, even though he hasn't won any races, Landon Lewis, the second place finishes have paid off as Landon is now leading the West Series championship by 5 points over Tyler Reif. Now, coming out of Phoenix, Sean Hingorani was 19 points out of the championship, and I had already mathematically eliminated him. But I have been proven wrong, thankfully. I always like a good championship battle. And Hingorani, with his 2 straight wins, is now just 9 points out of the championship battle. Trevor Huddleston is in 4th. He is 12 points behind. And Bradley Erickson is 5th, 15 points behind. Mathematically, those are the only guys I would say that are in the championship hunt. Tanner Reif, Kyle Keller, Todd Susan, Takuma Koga are just too far back or not competitive enough to challenge for the championship. Right now, it looks like we do indeed have 14 guys that will be running the minimum the entire season. So that's good for the West Series, that it looks like we won't have any less than 14 cars running every race. But yeah, I thought the race was definitely okay. I think, again, the one problem and the one thing that the West Series really struggles with, and it's a problem that we've been discussing for years, even before the ARCA West Series even started. It was back in the K&N West era, car counts. The ARCA West Series, really ever since about 2018-19, has struggled for car counts. And unfortunately, with the real-world issues that we're seeing with Everything's not getting cheaper. Unfortunately, it's getting more expensive. I only feel like those car counts are going to stay the same or get even smaller, unfortunately. And it's the sad reality. As much as I don't want to bull, you know what, guys? I don't want to not spit facts. It's true. It's getting too expensive. And for some teams, they just can't do it. They just can't do it. And it's great to see. We still have these guys that show up every week. But I'm not going to lie, guys. I agree with you. I miss the days of 30-car West fields, 30-car East fields, 40-car ARCA fields. Those were the days. I 100% agree with you guys. But we're not in those times anymore. We are not in those times when it was a lot easier to get your hands on cars and a lot easier to get your hands on parts. It's not as easy as it was back then, that's for sure. But the West Series was okay. Like I said, they still provide great on-track action. You don't have to watch the whole race, but there's a full highlight package that's on the website. So if you guys want to get caught up on your West Series action, go watch that highlight package. It's about 10 minutes long, but it'll take you through all the important moments of the race. And yeah, and then as for the West Series, their next race is, I'm looking up their schedule real quick. ARCA West Series, their next race will be at Portland, and I believe that is the Xfinity weekend as well. So that's entry list could be pretty big depending on how many cars we have. So yeah, Portland will be a fun race. ARCA West Series at Kern County, always a good show. Would love to see a truck race there someday. Kern County is a beautiful and lovely track. But yeah, moving on from ARCA West, we now move on to, I'm pretty sure the race most of you guys came here for, which was ARCA Series, ARCA at Talladega. Yes, Talladega Super Speedway. The big kahuna, arguably the biggest kahuna that the ARCA main series runs on. I will say, first off, it was definitely a step down from Daytona. Obviously, the car count was a tad smaller. The on-track activity was a tad smaller, but you got to remember, Talladega and Daytona, while they may be similar in terms of what the track is, flat out pack racing, Talladega and Daytona are still two different tracks in terms of how the cars will handle and how the cars will legitimately drive. Daytona's a lot smaller track in terms of the actual on-track surface, while Talladega is a lot wider, and that can definitely play a factor with how these cars draft around. I praised the Daytona and said it was one of the best ARCA races. I gave it a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 because it deserved it. This race was not a 10 out of 10, but it was definitely not a 5 out of 10. I will give this race an honest 7 out of 10 rating. And we had our moments. We had some Venturini team order finishes like we love best. They can say it wasn't a team order finish, but I don't know. Rewatching those last couple laps, it definitely looked like the 25 was holding back just a bit. I know that could be my interpretation, but I think a lot of people watching that finish, it looked like that the 25 was doing its job. And this is not the first time we have seen them do that. Case in point, Daytona last year with Corey Heim and Parker Chase. The 15 literally letting the 20 in every single restart and not even batting a dime towards trying to pass him. So it's not the first time Venturini has done this, and you could just call it smart strategy at the end of the day. Venturini is not the first team to do stuff like this, and they're not going to be the last. So as much as we can all complain about it, I just call it smart strategy. It's all I can call it. So I love Big Bill. Never going to say any bad things about Big Bill. Big Bill is one of my favorite people in the ARCA garage. He always stops to say hi to me. So I'm not going to complain about it. It sucks, but I'm not gonna go into a rant about it because it doesn't deserve a rant. We've seen this for years. We've seen this for decades with multiple different organizations across all series of motorsports. From 2 wheels to 4 wheels, team orders has been done for a long time, or helping out teammates has been done for a long time. As much as we complain about it, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. So there's no real need to complain about it. We had 34 cars for this race. 35 were on the original entry list. Kevin Campbell withdrew again. He withdrew from Daytona after not having an engine in the car and withdrew from this race, which I can only assume, which was the exact same thing. ARCA did have practice this weekend. They have their group practice sessions, which is basically just about 5 or 6 laps, 6 groups apiece. I like this form of practice. It gets the oil temps up, make sure these teams got their cars running well. I wish NASCAR would adopt something like this. I don't think it's a bad move at all. 5 to 6 laps just to get the cars warmed up, just to make sure everything's running correctly, and just to get the drivers acclimated. And I like the fact that we did that because for guys like Andres Perez de Lara, Mandy Chick, Frankie Muniz, Patrick Emmerling, Logan Misaraka, Steve Lewis Jr., Caleb Costner, and others, it was their first time at Talladega. And I think it's a very beneficial move. Instead of just thrusting them right into the race, get them some practice laps, get them some drafting practice, get some drafting laps. I think it's a very beneficial tool for these rookies, getting some laps in, getting some reps in, and seeing what kind of animal we're going to deal with the next day. Because practice was on Friday and practice and qualifying, I believe, were on the same day. But yeah, qualifying, actually didn't have qualifying. I'm sorry. The field was set by some sort of metric system. I don't know what kind of system they did, but it put the 18 of Taylor Gray on the pole. Jesse Love was second. Andres Perez de Lara was third. Scott Melton was fourth. Keep in mind, Scott Melton was actually driving a very, very good car in this race. Scott Melton was driving the same car that Todd Gilliland won in this race in 2019, so he had a good piece. Amber Balkin was fifth. Jack Wood was sixth. Greg Van Elst was seventh. Gus Dean was eighth. Bryce Hogberg was ninth. Might have been set by owner points. That might actually be what it might be. Frankie Muniz was 10th. Tim Monroe, he was a start in park, 11th. Ed Pompa was 12th. Brad Smith was 13th. Alex Clubb was 14th. AJ Moore was 15th. They obviously dropped to the rear. Other notables in the field towards the bottom, Tim Richmond was down in 25th. Tony Cosentino was down in 30th. Hunter Deschantel was 25th. Christian Rose was 24th. Like I said, everybody was just kind of all over the place. A very jumbled up field for sure. The field was set by 2022 owner points. Okay. Thank you. Finally got that confirmed. I didn't know if they were using some sort of metric system or what they were doing for owner points. So thank you. Kind of got that confirmed to me now. I was just so confused on why they lined up the field like that instead of just going off practice speeds. It would have made it a lot easier because you were going to have the fast cars up front either way. But anyway, we got the race going. Kind of chaos from the start. I don't know how they didn't penalize Jesse Love for the start. I don't know if it looked weird to anyone else, but the 20 just got a huge run right at the start. I mean, a huge run of over 2 car lengths out of the field. But with how long it takes these ARCA cars to get up to speed, they didn't necessarily catch him enough to pass him. So Jesse Love quickly got out front, established himself as the leader. And it was pretty basic in the beginning. We didn't really necessarily have much attrition up front. Everyone had kind of gotten single file. Love was leading. His teammate was behind him. Holmes, Delara. Even if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, I'm just going to say Delara. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's just easier for me to say it like that. Wood. Taylor Gray did have to go to the rear. Melton was up there as well. And the 35 of Van Elst. Everyone was just kind of settling in, let's get in line, log some laps, and just try to make it to the halfway break. And I like that. That's kind of what you got to do in this race. Log some laps, get some laps in. Amber Balkin was up there, of course. And we saw her have motor issues at Daytona. So why not have motor issues again? Notable early other issues in this race. The 12 of Tim Monroe, obviously a start in park. So he pulled off after 5 laps. Alex Clubb, I was definitely a little skeptical about how he would do. Not because of what he can't do, but just the car in general. Don't know if the car would be able to go at Talladega. I know he's got an older motor. He only ran 7 laps. I knew he wasn't going to run the whole race. He said he wasn't going to run the whole race, but just glad they were able to make it as many laps as they did. So 2 cars were already out of the race. We are down to 32. And like I said, everyone was just kind of riding. No one was really challenging for position. The back of the field, of course, the back of the field were 2x2, trading spots every lap. Okay. They were trading spots every lap, but the front of the field was stagnant until we got to lap 15. At this point, we'd already lapped a couple of cars, but they hadn't really caused any problems. This was not having to deal with a lap car, but it had appeared that coming off of turn 2, Amber Balkin had some sort of mechanical issue. Coming off of turn 2, she had a mechanical issue. And obviously, when you're on the banking, you can't just pull right off the track. You're going to cause a wreck if that happens. So unfortunately, there's nothing she could have really done but hold her line. And unfortunately, everybody behind her just kind of had to scatter, go every direction they could. And it just kind of really jumbled up the field. Amber got out of the way. The 69 went up. A couple of cars went up to 35. I will say Van Alst, before the crash, Van Alst actually did an amazing move. He shot the gap and gained like 3 spots. So Van Alst was actually making a perfectly good move. But then the problem was about halfway down the backstretch, well, everyone started to try to get back in line. And unfortunately, when that happened, push came to shove. And I still don't remember exactly what happened. But looking at it, this one car got into the 35. I don't know if it was just the 35 and the 69 that made contact. I don't know if someone got into the 35 or the 35 got into someone, but either way, the 69 and the 35 made contact, okay? And then about 2 seconds later, I don't know if it was just Melton overreacting. I don't know what happened, but for some reason, the 69 just comes right over and just right hooks the 35 right into the wall. I don't know if it was just a knee-jerk reaction or what it was, but the 35 just takes a horrible hit right into the wall. Nose is completely destroyed. The front clip is probably destroyed. And the Daytona winning car, great car, is unfortunately dead. And unfortunately, this is not our first issue with Scott Melton. Unfortunately, I defended Scott Melton at Daytona for the issue with Bryce Hogberg because he got wrecked there too. But Melton wrecks a lot. He does wreck a lot. I've been almost every race I've been to, he's at least either spun out or he's crashed. Scott Melton's a great guy. I have met him before. He's a lovely guy, but there's just, sometimes, with all due respect, is just some people should just not be out there. I mean, I understand his will to compete. I respect his will to compete. Will Kimmel and Bill Kimmel are 2 of my favorite people in the garage. I love Will Kimmel. He's always been nice to us over at Brad Smith. Anytime we need parts or, if they can lend a set of tires from practice, they will. So I love Will Kimmel. But there are just sometimes some people that shouldn't be out there. I don't want to say it was on purpose. I'm not going to say that. But for some reason, I don't know why the 69 would just go left right back into the 35 when the 35 is clearly there. It just right hooks him into the wall. Luckily, it was just a 1-car crash. Could have taken out the whole field. But for a man, who was preaching respect and all that crap about Daytona and how young kids race, it's just you say that and then you do this. What do you want the people to say? And you've been involved in so many crashes. I mean, it's just eventually the fans are just going to turn on you. And again, it's no disrespect to Scott Melton, but he's crashed a lot to the point where you wonder if he should still be out there. You do wonder. Now, I'm not going to give a full opinion on that. Every guy deserves to be out there. But when you've had as many issues as Scott Melton has, when do you decide enough is enough? Okay? Because it just sucks to see it, because what it does is it took out Greg Van Alst from an easy top 10, top 5 finish, maybe even another win. We'll never know. But it also pretty much eliminates Greg Van Alst's championship hopes. He doesn't have the money. He knows that. He doesn't have the competitive funds to go up against Venturini. He doesn't. He'll try his best. He will. There's no doubt Greg Van Alst will try his best. But he is now 3rd in points. He is 13 points out of the leader, and that is too far to climb back from. Unless the 20 blows an engine on lap 1 at Kansas, along with the 30, which we know is not going to happen, The 35 is effectively eliminated from the championship hunt. And it's sad because coming out of Phoenix, we were praising on the podcast about how legitimately, Greg Van Alst had a shot at this championship. Now, unfortunately, in just 15 laps into this Talladega race, the championship hopes are not hurt. They're gone. Like, they're gone. I'm sorry. I mean, we all love Greg Van Alst on this channel. We love him. I want to get him on this channel. I would love to have an interview with Greg Van Alst. But he just doesn't have the funds and the competitiveness to compete up against Venturini. If he was in equal equipment, yes. I'm sure if he was in a Venturini car every week, he'd be smoking the field. We all know he's talented. But overall, he just doesn't have the funds to compete with them every week. So that's the part that really sucks about it. And I will say, I hope Bruce Van Alst, everyone who watched his interview, Bruce, hope you're doing okay. We heard Greg nearly tear up in his interview, which just broke my heart, man. I mean, the personal family issues that team must be going through, and then of course the crash. I hate it for him. I hate it for him so much. I hope they can recover. I hope they can have a good run at Kansas, but it just sucks that their championship is over. I know people saying, well, you shouldn't say it's over, but come on. The 20 is just, it's overall, it's a better car. Even if Greg Van Alst has a great piece, he's not going to go to Kansas and outrun him. He's just not. And you don't want to be rude, but he's just not. In every race we've seen Greg Van Alst run at Kansas, he hasn't outrun them. It's not a diss against Greg Van Alst. It's not. It's not. But you're right. Love is still a rookie. He hasn't been to all these tracks. If he does continue to make mistakes, I agree. But let's face it, Phoenix was not his fault. Daytona, it was just inexperience. Now he's got experience. Kansas has a 5-hour practice session. So Jesse Love has 5 hours to get used to Kansas. So I think he'll be just fine. I don't want to say they're over. And fine, you can say that they're not over, but his chances at the championship are super, super slim. And it sucks to see it go abrupt, so in flames, for no good reason. So it is what it is. But obviously, I will say it's the heartbreak of the race for sure. And, along with him, I feel bad for Amber Balcaen at the same time. She really had a rocket ship. That car at Daytona was a rocket ship. Even though her car was damaged at Daytona, Amber's car could draft so good. Her car could pull up. Her car could push. Her car could pull. That she was running a great car. And they had a great car for her as well. So I do feel for Amber as well. This is her last scheduled race of the season, I believe. So it kind of sucks to see her last race of the season end early as well. So again, we were not off the best start for this Talladega race. And unfortunately, it wouldn't get much better. The 57 of Hunter Deschantel was the free pass. He would quickly become something in a second. Coming to the restart, we had chaos. Coming to the restart, we had the 97 of Jason Kitzmiller. I don't know what happened to him, but he just lost it. Made contact with the 66 of John Garrett, who made contact with the 63 of Logan Misaraka, who made contact with the 74 of Mandy Chick. Tim Richmond was involved. Just a whole bunch of back markers got involved. Even Brad and Kevin Hinkle. Peterson had brought 2 cars to this race. The 0 of Kevin Hinkle was involved. Brad was involved. And then the 57 of Hunter Deschantel was involved. And all I can say is, Hunter, what were you doing? He drove, to this day, ARCA brakes is a meme. I hate it because it just makes fun of the series. But I can't defend moves like this. I mean, what was Hunter thinking? He literally drove right into the 97. I understand the 97 was kind of coming back down the track, but instead of just slowing down to the point where you could easily pass him, it's like he'd never slowed down. It's like when the crash happened, he just kept going and going and going. And then the 97 comes down, he overcorrects the car and just slams right into him and totaling his 57 car in the process. So I don't know what Hunter was thinking in there, but okay, you crashed your car for some dumb reason. And unfortunately, the ARCA brakes meme collects more steam. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but I guess it did. And then, of course, Kevin Hinkle, he had the wreck missed, overcorrected while braking, and spun out and slammed right into Brad. Oh, it's like, what are we doing here? The 0 car is now damaged. That car is out again. That car will need a new nose. Luckily for Brad, it hit on the side, some minor cosmetic damage, but Brad was able to continue. But yeah, really wiped out all the back markers. The 63 was done. The 27 of Tim Richmond was done. Been a tough year for those guys. Kitzmiller was done. John Garrett was done. A lot of cars eliminated in that crash. And also a lot of cars that had gotten damaged. So by this point, just 24 laps into the race, we were already down to 24 cars. And the unfortunate part is, and I've said this a lot with ARCA Super Speedway races, we need big fields to be competitive. Because unfortunately, we were left with a lot of cars that wouldn't be able to be competitive. Although we had 24 left, the 62 was 17 laps down. The 48 and the 06 couldn't keep up with the field. The 75 couldn't keep up. The 10 couldn't keep. Well, they could, but not very well. They couldn't keep up to the main part of the field very well. So realistically, out of the 24 cars that we still had left on track, only about 18 of them were actually competitive. And unfortunately, it hurt. It hurt the flow of the race, and it just wasn't the same afterwards. They got it cleaned up. Jesse had pitted on this caution on lap 27. Eric Caudell, who actually stayed out, had taken the lead and actually restarted the race, was going to restart the race as the leader, but then he pitted just before they went back to green flag action. Jack Wood resumed the lead when we came back to green on lap 32, running 7 laps until the competition caution, which was scheduled. At this point, we'd had some issues with our full-time guys. Christian Rose, it's been a tough year for those guys so far. They had a fuel pump issue, which kind of just relegated them to running like crap the whole day, which, for Christian, kind of usual. But yeah, competition caution comes out on lap 39. The rest of the field pits. Kind of a standard caution. And then we had probably the wackiest moment of the race. Right as they're about to come down to pit road, we see the 74 of Mandy Chick stalled on the backstretch. And God, I almost feel bad for her because the clip was getting so many views. They cut to her in-car camera, okay? And this poor girl is just trying to get a drink of water. She's drinking her water, and then just pow! The right front tire explodes, and just her eyes and her. I didn't want to laugh because I felt bad, but it's like her reaction was priceless. She's frantically trying to get her water bottle back in the holster and get the car under control, and I'm just like, oh, that is so embarrassing. That is so embarrassing for all that to be captured on camera. But that's probably what it's like for most drivers. We just haven't seen those genuine reactions. But that is probably the term of being scared. I can't say the word, but I know you guys are probably thinking what I'm saying. I just feel bad for that. That had to be caught on camera. And the commentators, you could tell they were probably not trying to laugh either. But that kind of sucks for Mandy Chick. Her steam of getting a top 5 at Daytona, unfortunately, ended literally with an explosion. But again, the unfortunate part is it eliminated another car. So we were already going back to green with then 23 cars. And unfortunately, on the restart, through the caution flag, Caudell's car had overheated to the point where they unfortunately had to retire as well. So we were losing so many cars at this point. By the time we had restarted from the competition caution on lap 46, we were already down to just 22 cars. And at that point, you could tell it severely hurt the race. It did. It did. It's not the fault of the field. It's just we didn't have enough cars to really get a good draft in. But By this point, Jack Wood had led a couple laps. Andres Perez de Lara had managed to lead quite a few laps. He got out front from the competition caution. He would stay in the lead. Jack Wood was second, and it looked like the Rev cars were going to be pretty tough to beat. They kind of rode around this way. You know, you could definitely say in this 20 laps that the teams were making plans of what to do. Maybe make some moves, setting up some moves, but we would have to wait for that because we got another caution. The 93 of Caleb Costner took an unbelievable hit to the turn 3 and 4 walls. Like really horrible crash for an ARCA car. And thankfully, Caleb, he was hurting, but he got out. Sucks for him because he was running 12th at the time. A top 15 finish went away for him. But we were going to have a restart with just 7 laps to go. 7 laps to go here. And right on the restart, man, you could say it was almost textbook, like it was planned. The 25 and the 20. The 25, thick and thin, was following the 20, and they went right to the lead, shot right to the lead, and they didn't look back. And the unfortunate part is that as the laps went on, the back part of the field were running side by side. So that meant that the cars that were running 1st through 7th only had 7 cars to work with. So you had the 2 Rev cars, you had the 2 Venturini cars, you had the 2 Rev cars, Core, Taylor Gray, I think Scott Melton. I think they were all up in that lead draft. Just nobody could get anything going. And unfortunately, the 8, I believe it was this 18 and the 69 or the 8, some guys started to fall off, and it was almost just like a godsend, like they were going to win. And then on the last lap, you saw the 23 Holmes. He tried something. He backed up. Then I'll admit they got to run. And even the 25, was he going for the win? Was he playing defense? We'll never know. But after that run on the backstretch had stalled, you pretty much just had to ride around and collect your finish. And unshockingly, Jesse Love, in his very first Talladega start, wins the General Tire 200. Definitely, some people call it an anticlimactic finish, but there was a lot of factors to it. Obviously, the 25 playing defense, in my opinion. Nobody else, not enough cars behind to really play a factor here. You got to understand, guys, when you're in a pack of 5 cars, it's almost impossible to make a move. There's not enough traction with the field to make a move. So maybe that's one reason why we didn't see many moves being made. And, of course, just lack of attrition throughout the field because of it being spread so thin. But Jesse Love wins. Gus Dean was scored 2nd. Brett Holmes was 3rd. Andres Perez de Lara was 4th. Sean Core was 5th. Jack Wood was 6th. Taylor Gray was 7th. Scott Melton, despite the issues with Van Alstyne, did collect a top 10 finish. Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the middle, finishes 9th. Jason White gets another top 10 finish, so a good start to his season. 2 top 10s for the Jeff McClure team. Tony Cosentino continues to have a pretty good season for that rookie team. 11th. Tony Breidinger was 12th. Ed Pumpa was 13th. Brian Dowsett was 14th. Bryce Hogberg was 15th. Patrick Emmerling in the Emmerling Gase car was 16th. Christian Rose was 17th. Andy J., who had an unfortunate tire go down in that last run, he had to settle for 18th. Brad Smith got a top 20. AJ Moyer got a top 20. So at least for a couple of our underdog friends, got some good finishes. And Steve Lewis Jr., who had that issues getting the car going at the start, still managed to get 22nd. So 21 of our 34 starters finished the race. Obviously, the rest of the field failed to finish due to mechanical failures or crashes. One thing I wanted to talk about with this race was everyone calls this series a joke. They call the wrecks a joke. They love to call the series a joke when they see dumb wrecks. But all I can say is this. Everybody craps on the ARCA series for having dumb wrecks, unnecessary wrecks. And then we have the Xfinity race later that day. One of the dumbest races I've ever seen at Talladega. So many crashes, so many dumb moves, so many dumb blocks. Like Hemrick's move to create that melee where he flipped over. That block he made, that's a rookie block. Anyone could see that crash coming from a mile away. But yet, nobody will bat an eye towards NASCAR when you see a dumb wreck like that. But the moment that you see it in the ARCA series, people just love to bury the series, say it's a joke. But yeah, when it happens in NASCAR, they don't. The Cup Series was full of crashes. The Xfinity Series was full of crashes, but yet nobody bats an eye for those series. Nobody calls that a joke. I did, because it was. I'm sorry. All three races this weekend, even to an extent the ARCA race, not as bad. But the Xfinity race, that race was a joke. Come on, guys. That Xfinity race was a complete joke with how they were racing each other. And the Cup Series, to an extent, I mean, plate races, can we ever finish one under green? Sorry. So, for all the people that give ARCA crap, come on, guys. It happens in all the series. I think it's the cool thing to do, to crap on ARCA. I guess it's what it is, because I'm tired of it. It's so stupid and unnecessary that ARCA gets so much flack, but then the moment that NASCAR does the same thing, that nobody bats an eye towards that. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. This kind of bothered me. But looking at our point standings, we have a new points leader, and it's not Jesse Love. It is Malcolm, Frankie Muniz. Who would have thought? Frankie Muniz is leading the ARCA point standings by 11 points over Jesse Love. Greg Van Alst is 13 points behind in third. Jack Wood is fourth, but he is not running the whole season, so I won't count him. Tony Cosentino is fifth. He is 15 points behind. Andres Perez de Lara is sixth. Sorry, I got my numbers mixed up there. 22 points behind. Christian Rose is seventh, 25 points behind. The next full-time driver is down in 11th. That is Bryce Hogberg. He is 37 points behind. John Garrett in 13th. He is 46 points behind. Brad Smith down in 15th, 53 points behind, and I believe he is the last full-time driver. Important notes for the championship. Frankie, if he can just have a good run at Kansas, he could probably continue his points lead. Andres Perez de Lara is within 11 points of Jesse Love. I feel like we talked about at the beginning of the year, those were going to be your two guys for the championship. Those are going to be your two guys for the championship battle. Still only 11 points away from each other with 17 races to go. So this championship battle, for everyone who's just giving it to Jesse Love, it's not over till it's over. You know, we say we counted out the 35 of Van Alst. Fine. If you guys want to say he's not counted out yet, fine. You're right. Anything can happen. That is true. That anything can happen. But we got a race on our hands, guys, for this championship. And if, you know, Frankie Muniz, if he can just continue these good runs, top fives, top 10 finishes, maybe mathematically we can't even eliminate him. We can't eliminate him from the series either. So great addition so far for ARCA. And how about that? It's great PR for ARCA saying that Frankie Muniz is your points leader. So you can definitely say for Frankie, he's having the time of his life. And you got to love it for him. Got to love it for Frankie Muniz. He's having a great time. Yeah, leading the point standings. Who would have thought? I mean, who really would have thought that Frankie Muniz would be leading the points at this point in the ARCA Racing Series? And to his credit, Frankie Muniz has the most laps completed this season. That's kind of also a good statistic for him. Frankie Muniz has completed 316 laps this season. I don't know if they're all on the lead lap, but he has completed the most laps so far of anybody this season. In second place is Tony Cosentino, who's completed 315. So how about that? That's actually a pretty cool statistic for those guys. Because of Jesse Love's bad finish at Phoenix, he is actually towards the bottom of that list, unfortunately. But that was ARCA Talladega. I give it a 7 out of 10 for sure. It was definitely a fun race. Go back and check it out. I'm sure somebody has uploaded the full race on YouTube by now. They usually do. Some accounts will always upload these races, so go check it out if you have a chance. But yeah, and then we transition now to our last portion. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on this because it's just a preview, but we have one more race to preview here, guys. The ARCA East Series at Dover. one of the weird races of the season, just because it's one of the higher paying races. The ARCA East Series at Dover pays very well, $15,000 to win for an East race. That's very good. In terms of through the field payouts, 10th place is $6,000. That's the best of any ARCA race, and that includes plate tracks. For some strange reason, we say it every year, for some strange reason, this Dover East race is without a doubt the best paying ARCA race of the year. And unfortunately, though, it still doesn't get good car counts. I try to defend the series as much as I can, guys, but low car counts are low car counts, man. You had some people burying the entry list on Twitter today, saying it's the most jokeful thing ever. But what are you gonna do? Looking at the entry list, I'll go down the whole order here. 6 of LeVar Scott, the 10 of Ed Pompa, Zachary Tinkle's in the 11. CJ McLaughlin, kind of the shocker entry. He's in the 12. That is a Hillenberg entry. That will not be an Emerling Gase car like people think it will. Sean Hingorani, of course, for Venturini is going for both titles. Landon Lewis from the West Series will be running this race. So good action for him. William Sawalich, of course. They announced that they were going to be the first entry for the race at Flat Rock. Jake Finch, but that will be his own car more than likely under the Venturini banner. Connor Jones in the 25, Luke Fenhouse in the 28, Rita Goulet in the 31, Brad Smith, of course, in the 48, Tony Breidinger in the 55, Dale Shear in the 98, and the 01 of Tim Monroe. Now, noticeably absent from this entry list is the 41 of Tyler Reif. They have, unfortunately, not gotten their car ready yet. And unfortunately, this pretty much eliminates them from the championship. But rest assured, they will be running the rest of the East Series season. They will have both cars at Nashville, and they will be running both cars again for the rest of the year. So at least for the ARCA East Series at Nashville, we might get a better field than we did last year. But still, 15 cars. It's the same amount of cars we had last year. Last year's race, as we know, was not very good. We had a couple of cars withdraw, so we only had 15 last year. The 4 Hillenberg cars pulled off early, which pretty much left. You have the 10 competitive cars, and then you had Brad. Brad actually tried to go the whole distance, but he fell out about 81 laps in, mainly because they weren't going to gain anything. They realized they weren't going to gain anything, so they just pulled off. So 10 cars only ended up finishing the race. The 42, the 60, the 02 really weren't competitive. Venturini still had all 4 cars there, but even then, all of them weren't very competitive. Taylor Gray dominated that race. It was the first race with the new Mustang nose, and that car was just unbeatable that day. Last year's race was definitely not very good. I will say, though, compared to last year to this year, Yes, John, Ed's engine blew up. I just said they all pulled off early, but yes, unfortunately, Ed Pompa blew up last year. It just sucked because they could have had a top 10 finish. So yeah. But the entry list, I will say, definitely looks better this year than it did last year. Now, you can still say it doesn't, but I will say this, in terms of cars that can actually go for the win, 15, 17, 18, 20, 25, 28. And even throw in the 6. We have a good field of cars that can go for the win. We just don't have a big field. And it's the same thing I said in the Pensacola review. That race was actually interesting. Even though the 18 led flag to flag, he had to run a perfect 40 laps. The 28 of Luke Fenhouse was right there. So I will definitely say that this field is more competitive than the field we had last year, despite the exact same number of cars. And you could say, well, the 18 is just going to win again. Remember, the 18 did not win this race last year. The 18 only ran 5th in this race last year. William Sawalich, even though he probably has some simulator experience around this track, he comes into this race as a rookie. As far as I'm concerned, this race is wide open. I said the same thing about Pensacola. This race is really wide open. The guy who has the most advantage coming into this race is honestly Connor Jones. Connor Jones has the most experience on this track, so he could be a factor. But I would not give the win to William Sawalich. Now, they are going for 3 straight wins at this track. Ironically, shout out to Dawson in the chat. His birthday's tomorrow. So happy birthday. Ironically, they would have been going for 4 straight. In 2020, Ty Gibbs actually crashed out, which costed them the E-Series championship that year. But right now, this was the last race that the 18 team did not win. And I don't see the 18 team winning this race, honestly. I think Luke Fenhaus, he likes these types of tracks. Connor Jones has the experience. I don't see the 18 winning this race. I really don't. My pick for this race will actually be Jake Finch. My underdog pick for this race will be Luke Fenhaus. I don't see it. I don't see the 18 winning. Will he be competitive? Yes. Yes, he will. But I don't see the 18 being as competitive as people think he will. And we saw that at Pensacola. Yes, he led flag to flag, but he had to work for it. In terms of the filler part of the field, we got some pretty good guys still running. We got Zachary Tinkle running. We know Zachary's good. CJ McLaughlin, he's just getting some extra laps in for his Xfinity race, which is always smart. We've seen that done before. So they'll be kind of good filler racing around each other with the 55. The 98 will not be a start and park. That'll be a full race car. The start and parks more than likely will be Brad and Tim Monroe, which would leave 13 cars for the whole race. Last year's race, guys, like I said, Ed Pompa blew up early, and then the other 3 Hohenberg cars pulled off. So when all you had was the 10 competitive cars, and then you had Brad out there, nothing was going to happen. And really nothing did happen. It was just the race brake cautions and then a debris caution. And yeah, just nothing really happened. But comparing that race from last year to this year, we got a lot better race on our hands, I believe. We actually got about 5 to 6 competitive cars that legitimately have a shot at this win. Then you got your fillers, and then you got your starting parks. But it does suck that we can't get more for this race. But it's not like this is anything new. This is not anything new. And I looked it up just for the heck of it. You know, I do agree that this should be a combo race. I don't think the East Series should by primarily going here. But this was an East race on the K&N schedule. And just to give you guys an instance, what really started falling off in this race was around 2017. From 2016, guys, in 2016, we had 27 cars for this race. In 2017, we had 15. In 1 year, we lost 12 cars. And that is where I really saw the decline of the K&N series. Was 2017 and beyond. For some reason, at the end of 2016, both the East and West series just fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened. I really don't, but it's just what happened. 2017 had 15, 2018 had 17, 2019 had 14. When the ARCA series took it over and became ARCA East, we had 18 in 2020, 18 in 2021, 15 last year, and 15 this year. So this is nothing new. The East races have always had small fields ever since 2017, so it's nothing new. But I still don't say it's going to be a bad race. Will it might get a little boring at sometimes? Yes. But we have 6 cars that legitimately have a chance at this. So I'm not going to say that this is going to be a bad race. Oh, you shouldn't tune into it. I think it's going to be good. I do. We got a lot of hungry guys out there, a lot of hungry kids who are trying to prove themselves. You know, this is in front of the big guys. This is a Cup-affiliated weekend. You know, we got a lot of eyes looking on these races. You know, there are some owners out there that watch these ARCA races to prospect young talent. And there's a lot of young talent in this race that I can see going somewhere. You know, guys like Landon Lewis, guys like Jake Finch, guys like Luke Fenhaus. This is the race for them to really make a name for themselves in front of these Cup and Xfinity owners to maybe get a shot with them next year. So they're going to be racing hard too. There's a lot at stake for this race. But of course, as we mentioned, the payouts for this race, 15th place, last place, pays $3,750. To give you guys an instant with that, $3,750 for last place in this ARCA East race. At Talladega, $3,750 is what would have been better than 13th place at Talladega. 10th place pays $6,000. That is equivalent to 5th place at Talladega. So, for some strange reason, this race pays very, very well for an ARCA race. So it doesn't surprise me that Hillenburg has all 4 here. I mean, I don't blame him at all. Probably one of the few races a year where they can really make some money. CJ running, if CJ kind of gets a bad rap, I hope he doesn't crash because, I don't want him to see him wreck a Hillenburg car. Hopefully Tinkle can run. John Schultzke, if you're still watching, any Ilmores in the Hillenburg cars this weekend, or are they all running D3 legacies? If you're still watching, John, I'd appreciate if you could answer that question. But yeah, my pick for the race, of course, like I said, was Jake Finch. My underdog is Luke Fenhouse. This race will not be live. We'll be live on Flow Racing, of course. The time for this race is Friday, of course, at 5:30 p.m. However, it might not happen at 5:30 p.m. It might not even happen until Monday. The rain, it looks like it could be a complete washout. It looks like it can be a complete washout for this race. John in the chat, 3 Yates spec issues and 1 built D3. Okay, thank you. So no Ilmores for Hillenburg. A lot of teams have actually switched to the Yates motors for the smaller tracks, which have been proven to be almost a little bit better than the Ilmores. Definitely more reliable. Definitely more reliable than the Ilmores. Yeah, so if the race does happen on Friday, catch it live on Flow Sports at 4:30. But it's, I don't know. The weather can change, but as of now, it does not look good. And one last thing, speaking of the East Series, they've actually dropped the entry list for the entry guide, for Flat Rock. And just out of curiosity, they said a maximum starting field of 28 cars at Flat Rock. And right now, I'm expecting a pretty big entry list. There's a very real possibility that we will have DNQs for Flat Rock. So for some of these teams, it wouldn't shock me if they're entering their cars in this race just to build up some owner points when it comes to Flat Rock, because that race is going to have a lot of entries. That race has a lot of eyes on it for sure. Whew. Boy, we have been here for over an hour, and I'm tired, but this has been a fun show tonight. But yeah, ARCA West at Kern County was fun. ARCA Talladega was fun. ARCA East at Dover should be a fun race. Should be a fun race for sure. But yeah, guys, if you have any more to say, just leave it in the comments below. Pretty much gotten out what we wanted to tonight. ARCA is still, like I said, firing on all cylinders. I will be helping out Brad Smith at Kansas next week, so we'll be able to give you guys more of an insider preview on next week's show. Yeah, so we will catch you all next Tuesday with the ARCA Racing Podcast review of Dover and preview of Kansas, and we will see you all on Thursday. Thursday at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Base time. And yeah, you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday night, and I will catch you all on Tuesday. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel, turn on that bell for notifications so that way you do not miss Thursday's podcast, because it'll be a fun one. Our Talladega review and preview of Dover for back marker battles. So have a good rest of your night, guys. We will see you on Thursday. Don't do anything too stupid now. And I'm signing off. So Colby Evans, starting park car. Have a good night, guys. I'll catch you later.